see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. What do you make of this case? I mean, the court has stepped in and said they can't reclassify but schools are for profit, are they not?
I thought this was actually a very interesting story.
Yeah.
So you say they're for profit, but the reality is, I can't think of very many cities in particular where the public sector can educate 100% of the children.
Okay.
So you need private schools.
Right.
Imagine what happens if some of these private schools close down, as it was, I believe, the start of 2022 in Joburg. They had 1,400 grade 1 and grade 8 students that they were struggling to place in schools at the start of the year. So there's already a deficit in school slots. But here's why I found this even more interesting. I'm sure you've heard me talk a lot about this.
Yeah.
The lack of a holistic perspective on things. So when the decision was made, they clearly hadn't thought through the myriad of implications and unintended consequences of this rate hike. And bear in mind, the rate hike occurred without consultation with the school. So the school, first of all, there was the shock where they prepared their budgets, made some probably very conservative
assessments.
Yes, of what they thought the hike would be.
Yeah.
And in some cases, as you said, 6 to 8 times.
Yeah.
Something that some of them said they can't actually afford, and some schools would have been forced to close down.
Yeah.
So let's look at, imagine a significant proportion, X%, of private schools in Johannesburg were to close down.
Yeah.
What would be the implications?
It'd be bad. It'd be pretty bad.
First of all, it means you have X number of children who will no longer be educated in those schools, so they have to look for new places for them, either in the private or public sector. Depending on, they already have space limitations on the public sector, so what does that mean? You could end up with some children being out of school.
Right.
2, it has implications for the education of some of those students, which impacts the quality of the talent pool for the nation and the economy.
Right.
GDP impact, because those schools are not making profit.
Right.
Those people employ teachers and other people, so they lose their jobs.
Yeah.
That means those people are not paying income tax. The schools use services. That impacts all their service providers.
Right.
And you have all these knock-on effects.
Yeah.
And I truly, truly want to see a world where when governments are making key decisions, they look at it from a truly holistic view. What are the pros and what are the cons? If I make this decision, think it through. What could happen? This little thought that I just threw out took me a couple of minutes.
Right.
You know, it's not rocket science.
Gotcha.
You just ask yourself, okay, worst case, what could happen?
Yeah.
And do the benefits of this decision outweigh the costs?
Gotcha. Now, really quickly, and thank you so much for that. The court has capped the tariff increase for fiscal year 2022-2023. What was it? 4.85%. So they're saying you can't raise it by more than 4.85% in the next financial year. Is that? What do you? I mean, I think you're in approval.
After my long sermon,
I know, right?
No, absolutely. We need the schools. We need the private schools. Which the schools and government, they need to work together because they're providing a public service. Yes, they might make profits, but I've advised schools in the past, and I've seen their financials. And even when they are for profit, most of them, the margins are so slim.
Yeah. You know, if I will turn this to something going on in Nigeria, the head of, I think it was ASU, was asking for a 10% increase in education tax. Now, of course, the pushback from the private sector was, well, it was 2%, then they moved it to 2.5. What have we done with the 2.5? Do you, with the kind of support, where I'm going with this is, with the kind of support that schools and education is needed, do you support higher taxes to fund, you know, them? How do you think that should work?
Because you're asking me whether I want to pay higher education taxes
okay,
as a business,
so there
and
you go.
surprisingly the answer is no.
Right.
I don't. No, here's the thing. We have to be more grown up and mature about some of these things.
Okay.
I spoke last week about the state of government's finances.
Yes, in depth.
Right? Given where the economy is and where government's finances are, you need private sector to be firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Increasing their tax is not the way forward. And we know that government can't afford to pay for the kind of education our children need.
Yeah.
So we need to look at alternative structures. We need to look at alternative sources of income, and simply going to the private sector and saying, pay us more, when a lot of them are struggling to even comply with how much they're paying. Personally, I don't think that's the answer.
There's a quote from one of the education bodies that took, I think her name is Angela Bailey, that I think she's with one of the education groups that took the city of Johannesburg to court. She says, she's the AfriForum head of cultural affairs. She says AfriForum considers this, Alana Bailey, AfriForum considers this ruling a great victory, and I think this moves to what you said. Instead of targeting schools, the Metro, that's the city of Johannesburg, should work with schools instead. We also see that with this order, the court also protects schools for the next tax year. I think she's talking about the cap.
Yes.
So you're in line with what she's saying. They should work together.
Absolutely. And I'm saying that the government and schools should work together, but I'm saying all government departments should work together. So here's the interesting thing. The city then said, it's not our fault. There was some new legislation by some other people, and that's what caused this. So again, it's just an example of how we're not working together. And I think it's because we have all these frameworks and systems and processes that encourage silo thinking. But it doesn't work. And we need to begin to join the dots more and work together more cohesively if we really want to see the change and the growth and the prosperity we want in our nations.
See, that's why you're the CEO of an advisory firm. So, Sayadi Okoli, CEO, Alpha African Advisory, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.